Good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you are in the world. And welcome to this training on Agricultural Innovation Systems Policy Practice Index, also called AIS-PPI. This training is taking place under the auspices of the CADIP XP4 program, which is implemented by CADESA in the Southern Africa region. The Regional Network for Agricultural Policy Research Institutes, RINAPRI, has been engaged by CADESA to facilitate this training over the next 4 days. And our trainings will start from 10 a.m. Central African time to 1 p.m. Central African time. So these trainings will take 3 hours, and we really would appreciate your participation in these trainings. So allow me to recognize all the countries that are represented here. And I believe we are expecting 10 countries. And these are Botswana, Democratic Republic of Congo, Eswatini, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. So we welcome you to this meeting, and I believe your country policy teams are being led by the CADIP XP4 focal points in your countries. Let me also recognize the presence of Dr. Baitisi Podisi from CADESA, who's here with us, Dr. Kwaku Antwi from FARA, who is expected here with us, as well as the RINAPRI Technical Chair, Lulama Trob, who has been supporting and guiding us the technical side of this work. Colleagues from the 11 RINAPRI centers who have tuned into this training. And I just want to also welcome and commend our facilitators who have been able to put this program together, and our colleague Alphonse Akuyu from the RINAPRI Secretariat. Importantly for me, a warm welcome to fellow women who are on this call. And just to say that I'm really, really happy to see women participating in advancing agricultural development and food systems in our continent. So we are pleased that you've been selected by your country to participate in this training as part of the country policy team. And there are several expectations from the facilitators and from CADESA from your participation as members of these country policy teams. So the main purpose of this training is to provide support to Southern African countries to improve the formulation and implementation of public policies. And this is aimed at achieving coherent and effective country-level public policies. There are specific objectives which were sent to you in an email from Alphonse Akuyu. I will not belabor those. However, I just want to stress that during this training, the facilitators will expect you to populate your country reporting framework on policies affecting agriculture inputs and commodities across under cross-border trade. You will find this framework among the documents that were sent to you. So please look out for this document, the Country Reporting Framework, CRF, because as a country policy team, you will be expected to populate that document. So on that note, I just want to once again welcome you to this training and request that you introduce yourselves. Now, I know that so far we have 34 people on this call, and I will just call countries. So when I call out your country, please introduce yourself. Of course, let us know which country you're from. And so basically your name, the country that you are from, and your designation. That will be useful. So I will begin with myself. My name is Nalishevo Mebelo, and I am the Senior Program Coordinator. Yes. Hello.
Yeah.
Gabriel.
I'm Gabriel Baemedi from the Republic of Botswana, working as a policy analyst.
Yes, please just hold on, Gabriel. If you just hold on, we are just starting to introduce ourselves now. So okay. I was introducing myself and you will be next. Okay, so my name is Nalishevo Mebelo, and I am the Senior Program Coordinator at the RENAPRI Secretariat. So I will move on to participants from Botswana. If you can please introduce yourselves, Botswana. Gabriel.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Baemedi. Gabriel Baemedi from the Republic of Botswana, Ministry of Agriculture, working as a policy analyst, principal policy analyst. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Botswana.
Good morning.
Yes.
My name is Thomas Chuani Tadubana from Republic of Botswana. I'm working as Chief Animal Production Officer in the Department of Animal Production.
Thank you very much. Next, Botswana.
Morning.
Yes, please.
My name is Khorata Buikanyo from Botswana. I work as an agricultural economist here at the Ministry of Agriculture.
Thank you. You're welcome. Next, Botswana.
Morning.
Yes.
My name is Lekari, working as a Principal Research Officer, Ministry of Agriculture, Botswana.
Thank you, Lekari. Next, Botswana. If you can put on your camera as well, we'll be happy just for the introduction. Do we have any more people from Botswana? Okay, so in that case, we will move on to Democratic Republic of Congo. Do we have DRC participants here? Okay, we don't have Congo. We will move on to Eswatini. Participants from Eswatini. Okay, they haven't joined us yet, I think. Let's move on to Malawi.
I'm seeing a hand there from Nisi, maybe from Eswatini.
Eswatini? I don't see a hand, sorry, on this side. Okay. So, oh yeah, there we go. Non-landler. Non-landler, please introduce yourself. You are muted.
Yes, my name is Nonhlan Shamnis. I'm working for the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade under the Cooperatives Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Non-landler. Do we have any more people from the Kingdom of Eswatini? Okay, Non-landler, if you can put your hand, yeah, lower your hand, yeah. Malawi? Do we have anybody from Malawi?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is Jennifer Mkosi from Malawi. I work at the Ministry of Agriculture. I work as an economist. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Is there somebody else from Malawi?
Yes, good morning.
Yes, Daudi.
Yeah, this is Daud Pierce from Malawi, Minister of Agriculture, working as economist.
Okay, thank you very much. There was a hand raised.
Yes, good morning.
Vivian.
This is Vivian Mtima from Malawi.
Yes.
I work as a economist at Mzuzu Agricultural Development Division. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vivian. Do we have any more colleagues from Malawi? Okay, let us move on to Mozambique. Mozambique, do we have participants from Mozambique? Mozambique. Okay, we shall move on to Namibia. Oh, Mozambique, you are here. Okay, please go ahead.
Bom dia.
Bom dia. Como estás?
Eu estou bem, não sei como é que estão.
Bem, obrigado.
Sim, eu chamo-me Pedro Costa.
Yes.
Da Comissão Nacional da SADC.
Okay.
Aqui em Moçambique. Obrigado.
Thank you, Pedro. Anybody else from Mozambique?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Gabi from Mozambique, and I'm a lecturer at Eduardo Mondlane University.
Thank you very much. Mozambique, anybody else from Mozambique?
Good morning.
Yes, please.
My name is Maisel Popat, and I'm an agricultural economist. And I also act as a lecturer at the Eduardo Mondlane University, Faculty of Agronomy and Forestry Engineering. Thank you.
Thank you, Mozambique. The next participant.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Annabella Manissa. I work for AGRA as policy advisor in support to government here in Mozambique on policy and state capability. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Mozambique. Do we have anybody else from the team in Mozambique? Okay, let us move on to Namibia. Namibia.
Good morning. My name is Ruli Venter. I'm from the Namibia Agricultural Union, a farmers union in Namibia.
Thank you very much, Ruli. Next, Namibia.
Good morning. My name is Nyati. I'm from the Namibia National Farmers Union.
Thank you, Nyati. Next participant from Namibia. Okay, haven't joined us yet. All right, so let's move on to Tanzania. Tanzania, please introduce yourselves.
Okay, I will start. My name is Deogratias Rezaura. I work for the Tanzania Agricultural Research Institute as an agricultural economist. Thanks.
Karibu sana. You're welcome. Next, Tanzania.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. Oh, go ahead, my friend. Yeah, my name is Charles Mgeni. I work at Sokoine University under the Department of Agriculture Economics and Agribusiness. I'm a lecturer.
Welcome, Charles. Next.
I think I'm the
Tanzania.
Last
Okay, Tanzania.
Good morning. My name is Titus Musomba. I'm a statistician, but I'm heading the Department of Agriculture Statistics with the National Bureau of Statistics. Thank you very much. Karibu sana.
Asante. So we don't have any more participants yet from Tanzania? Tanzania, anybody else? Okay, let us move on to Zambia. Zambia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Mulenga. I'm a senior research fellow for the Indaba Agricultural Policy Research Institute here in Zambia. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. You're welcome. Zambia, any more participants from Zambia?
Good morning, everyone.
Hello? Yes.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm Namanyongo Dominic. I'm an extensionist in the Ministry of Agriculture, Zambia.
You're welcome, Dominic. Next participant from
Good morning.
Zambia.
Good morning,
Yes.
everyone. My name is Chirima Timothy. I'm a research manager for Msika Development Initiatives. Thank you.
Welcome, Timothy. Next. Next participant from Zambia. Okay, so we shall then move on to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe? Do we have participants from Zimbabwe?
Yes, I'm Dumisani Kuchwayo. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
I'm Dumisani Kuchwayo. I'm from the Department of Research and Specialist Services in the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Settlement. I'm one of the participants.
Okay, thank you. Zimbabwe, next participant.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wiseman Teta from Agricultural Rural Development Authority, a parastatal which is under the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands, Water, Fisheries, and Rural Resettlement here in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next participant from Zimbabwe. Yes, please.
Yeah, my name is Emmanuel Makiwa. I'm a lecturer and researcher at the University of Zimbabwe for the department called Agribusiness Development and Economics. I'm also a research director for Zimbabwe, for RENAPRE. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm seeing somebody called A. Manika. Is that somebody from Zimbabwe?
Good morning. My name is Alpheus Mayoyo. I'm with the Center for Agriculture and Food Policy, a think tank. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody has their microphone on and we can hear some noise in the background. Please ensure your microphones are muted.
Morning, everyone. My name is Gamchirai Kapembeza, Minister of Lands, Agriculture, Water, Fisheries, and
Okay, we seem to have lost Gamchirai. Okay, so can we have the next participant from Zimbabwe?
Paul Zakaria. I'm from the Zimbabwe Farmers Union.
Thank you, Paul. You're welcome. Next participant from Zimbabwe. Okay. We don't have any more participants from Zimbabwe. Can we have South Africa? If you are on the call, South Africa. Any participants from South Africa?
Hi, this is Lou Traub. I'm based at the University of Stellenbosch and I serve as RENAPRE's technical chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Lulama. Thank you. Okay, so can I request other RENAPRE participants who are on the call to introduce themselves if you haven't introduced yourself yet as part of the country team? RENAPRE colleagues from non-SADC countries, if you are on the call.
Hello, this is Jackson Langat. I work with Tegemeo Institute based in Kenya. I'm a member of RENAPRE. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson. Any other RENAPRE members on the call?
Hi, good morning.
Yes.
Yes, my name is Christopher Jonga. I work as a monitoring and evaluation specialist for Agricultural Rural Development Authority in Zimbabwe.
Okay, okay, Zimbabwe. All right. Okay, so let me now request CADESA to introduce themselves.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Baitsi Podisi. I work for CADESA as the CADAB XP4 Regional Program Coordinator. We are based here in Gaborone. Thank you. Okay. I suspect I might be the only one who's in the meeting.
All right, thank you. Farah is, do we have participation from Farah on the call?
Yes, hello everyone, good morning.
Yes.
My name is Kweku Enchi, and I work with Farah as the policy officer. And I'm happy to be here with you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Kwaku. Thank you for joining the call. So I will now, Alphonse, you haven't introduced yourself.
Thanks very much, Dr. Nashebo. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alphonse Akuyo,
I'm the Assistant Program Coordinator at the RENAPRI Secretariat. I'm sure you must have seen some emails from me. Dr. Nalishebu, we have Patricia Malatsi. She has introduced herself.
Yes, I've seen her hand. Patricia, please introduce yourself.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is Penyo David from Botswana. I'm using Patricia Malati's laptop.
Okay.
Yeah, I work as an agricultural economist.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so if there is anybody who hasn't introduced themselves, George, I see your hand. Patricia, sorry, the person using Patricia's laptop, if you could lower your hand. And George, introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name's George Omiat from Uganda. I'm working at Makerere University. I'm a lecturer at the Department of Agribusiness and Natural Resource Economics.
Thank you, George. Thank you for joining this call. Is there anybody else who hasn't introduced themselves so far?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Molefe Banyadize, working for Botswana Bureau of Standards Certification Services.
Thank you very much. We're happy to have you here today. Anybody else who has not introduced themselves? Daphne, have you introduced yourself?
Yeah, good morning, Nalshebu. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Daphne Kibunelwe from the Ministry of Agriculture, Development and Food Security. I'm also the country CADEP focal point. Thank you.
Thank you, Daphne. Pleasure to hear from you. Bertha, please introduce yourself. Bertha, your hand is up. Can you introduce yourself? Okay. We are not hearing from Bertha. Okay, Bertha, please introduce you. You are muted. Okay, we cannot hear you, Bertha, so you might have to type your introduction in the chat box, and then we will know who you are and which institution you are representing and from which country. But you are welcome, Bertha, to this meeting. So, ladies and gentlemen, pardon? Please mute your microphones, everybody. There is somebody called Moses Ngosa. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Moses Ngosa from Zambia, Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry.
Welcome, Moses. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think those who are on the call have introduced themselves. We are just waiting for Bertha to type her details in the chat box so we know who she is. So thank you very much. And once again, a warm welcome to all of you. And thank you very much for finding time to participate in this training, which is really crucial for our member states and within the context of the CADEP XP4 program. Thank you for introducing yourselves, and it's a pleasure to get to know all of you. Some of you have only been emailing you, and it's just wonderful to finally hear your voices. I haven't seen some of your faces, but it's just good to know that, you know, there's a human being on the other side of these emails that we keep sending around. So having said this, let me now hand over to Dr. Baiti Sipodisi to give us a few remarks. Thank you. Dr. Podisi.
Thank you, Shiba. Let me make these few remarks on behalf of CADESA Secretariat, and I'll start off by, of course, thanking you, the Director of Ceremonies, who is also the CEO for RENAPRI, Dr. Nalishebo Mibelo, and also want to acknowledge the presence of the FARA representative, Dr. Kwaku, and of course, our distinguished heads of department from the various ministries, departments from the Ministries of Agriculture across the region, principal planners, distinguished scientists, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I just want to take this moment to appreciate your presence in participating in this virtual training, which is being done under the auspices of the CADAP XP4 program that CADESA is implementing in partnership with other sub-regional research organizations, the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa, the Agricultural Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services, AFAS, as other SROs from East and West Africa, namely the Association for Strengthening Agricultural Research in Central and East Africa, ASARECA, and the West Africa equivalent, which is the West and Central Africa Council for Agricultural Research and Development. The CADAP XP4 program is supported by the European Union to these sub-regional research organizations to implement the climate-relevant research and development and innovation. We are working with various partners that are supporting us in this endeavor. And I just want to acknowledge the partnership that CADESA has struck with RENAPRI, which is a regional network of policy research institutes in the region and actually the broader scope of Africa. In particular, we've noted that RENAPRI has a strong footprint in Southern Africa, so we found them very relevant for this particular training event. CADAP XP4 has noted the gaps that exist in as far as policy implementation is concerned in Africa. As a matter of fact, during the evaluation of CADAP program, it was noted that our research institutes, our universities, they really didn't take a very proactive role in assisting with the implementation or helping at national level. Therefore, CADAP intends deliberately to find a way of targeting this particular stakeholder so that they can play an active role in the policy discourse that takes place at national level. Our different member states are at different stages of implementing the national agricultural investment plans, which you all know is part of the activities related to CADAP itself. CADESA itself is a creation which was made by SADC member states to coordinate cooperation as far as agricultural research and development is concerned. And we have noted that we have not, to a large extent, engaged very much with the policy clientele or personnel in the various ministries of agriculture. Traditionally, we have interacted a lot with your research scientists, your agronomists, the animal scientists, and other professions within the agricultural fold. But moving forward, given the importance of policy, where we've noted some particular gaps, especially in relation to implementation, we feel as CADESA that we want to have a way of engaging with this particular clientele so that we can both work together to further the development of the region. We are happy that the CADAP XP4 has given us some resources through which we can interact with various stakeholders in the region as far as policy development is concerned. And I'm happy that in this meeting, we have FARA, which is a continental body, which is working together with the sub-regional research organizations to promote priorities in the region. And in particular, they have the policy practice index as an approach which they think is good at assisting in the formulation, the monitoring of policy by the different stakeholders at national level. We're happy that we managed to get into this partnership with RENAPRI, which is a network which has a lot of economists who are actually people who are often very active in this area of policy development. We know that policy making involves various stakeholders, different sectors, various players, so that you bring all the voices to the table. I'm happy by seeing a cross-section of disciplines that are represented in this training. We hope you'll find it useful. And for us as CADESA, it also gives us an opportunity for us to interact with you and be of relevance to you as stakeholders in the region. So with those few remarks, without much ado, I just want to acknowledge your commitment by devoting time to take part in this training. I've seen that we have fairly busy people by virtue of their responsibilities in your various ministries, faculties, and your call of duty that is very important if you are able to reserve time to participate in this exercise. I hope you find it useful. So with those few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I want to declare this training officially opened and also extend our sincere appreciation to the CADESA Secretariat on behalf of the CADESA Executive Director, Dr. Cliff Dlamini. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mabelo.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Podisi, for those opening remarks, and thank you for declaring this training officially open. On behalf of RENAPRI, I think we also should be thankful to you for having identified our network as a potential resource to help you deliver on the CADIP XP4 program. And we are also extending same gratitude to FARA, who have also been very supportive in ensuring that this training actually kicks off. And I noticed that you underscored the facts that there have been gaps noted in issues of policy implementation, and that as CADESA, you want to support countries in the SADC region to strengthen their policy practice. And you alluded to the fact that FARA has this tool, the AIS-PPI, which is the tool that countries will be trained in order for them to strengthen their policy practices. So moving on to the next item on our agenda, I want to now welcome Dr. Jackson Langat from Tegemeo Institute, a member of RENAPRI, to provide us with the meeting objectives and also open up a discussion around those meeting objectives. So Dr. Jackson Langat, I welcome you to the e-floor.
Thank you, Nalishebo, and welcome participants for this workshop. We call it a workshop, a training, and some of you have been engaging in the Google Classroom. Some have indicated through an email that they have had a challenge in terms of access, and just posted again on the chat box the access code, and yeah, you're welcome to interact with the materials there, even as we also engage on the same in the online platform using Zoom. So yeah, I'm supposed to present on the course objectives and just share the screen. Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen and you can hear me.
Yes.
We can see your screen. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
If you can just speak up a little bit more, Jackson, maybe get closer to your mic.
Okay, then. Okay. So this training is supposed to run, of course, in the interaction between today and Thursday. And I'm sure there are some expectations that are running through your minds when you heard about this course, when you've engaged with the materials that we've shared with you. And it's good also to get to figure out some of the expectations that you have. Well, I'll come back to it, but maybe we can just go through the objectives first of this course, then we can see whether it has captured your expectation, if there could be anything else that you want to add in that we can rope into the whole process, of course, to make the experience of this training more enriched, you're more than welcome to add in. So I point out that there is a central objective of this activity, this training. And one is to strengthen the capacities of both the regional and the national organization. And these organizations in this case would include the ministries that you are representing, the offices that you are representing, and the strength would be on formulation of policies, implementation of the same, and advocating for the policies, because then the training will empower you with some tools that can enhance in these processes, as well also in resource mobilization. The skills that we will get and the tool that we will build on would also be a very good advocacy tool that you can use in terms of resource mobilization. And the second aspect in terms of the objective is the aim also is to support the implementation of the policies. Remember, the first one is more on the formulation, and the second one now is on the implementation. We know that for us to realize the fruits of the policies that are in place or to be put in place, it's more on their implementation. If we see them delivering on what they are designed to deliver, I think that would be also a big plus as far as the policy formulation is concerned. So it's supposed to support the implementation of the policies, particularly those in the science, technology, and innovation among the African countries. So this is the purpose, especially as also a purpose of XP Pillar 4 of the CADEP process. So in this objective, then, there will be the product that we would wish to have at the end of the training. Some of you are in academia and you're teaching, so in every training program, there are some outcomes that you are aiming at. Outcomes could be in behavior, in abilities, in skills, and knowledge. So at the end of this training, then, the team will within a week finalize the stock take of all the national and the regional policies that are cut out for this process of the training. And they will also be able to assess all these policies using the
have we lost Jackson? Can you hear Jackson?
No, I cannot hear him from my side. Thank you. You would need to also have a basis for whatever judgment.
Sorry, Jackson, can I just stop you for 1 minute? We lost you for a minute.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So okay. If you could begin your sentence.
Okay. So I guess perhaps my connectivity, but I'm not seeing any signal of that. But I was just on this issue of the outcomes for this training, and the outcomes would be the deliverable. So one of the outcomes would be the stock take of all the national and the regional policies. Of course, we are passed to some section of these policies, which will be guided through in the course of the process. And number two output or outcome would be the assess all the policies using the tool. Now applying the tool itself after learning of the tool to do an assessment of the policies that you've picked up in the first outcome. And the last one then would be bring out the evidence that you're using as a basis for whatever score that you're giving to these policies that you are assessing. And this would need to build in some objectivity in the whole process, that as you score this in whatever criteria, this would be the basis for your score. So those are the learning outcomes, the first learning outcome. Secondly, as one of the learning outcome would be that besides the policies that are relating to the cross-border trade, the country teams also will be notified of the continuing process with other steps of the implementation of the tool itself, the AIS-PPI tool. And these will guide also in the country team assessments of the policies. So this is a discussion that is meant to be taken forward, that you are the champions that, or the messengers that are being empowered in this tool. Then you take it up with your country teams in undertaking the assessment of the policies. And the assessment will be based on the formulation of the policies and the implementation of the same. Number two of that would be the independent review of assessment of the tool by main stakeholders. At the end of the day, then, there is need for ownership of this assessment that you're coming up with. So roping in the stakeholders that they review on the assessment and own up and critique and also contribute to the whole process is critical. So it will also be expected that there will be an independent review of the assessment of the policies by the main stakeholders of those policies. And lastly will be some bit of validation of the workshop by of the PPI. So the validation in this case is now like endorsing the assessment that have been undertaken as representing the country or the section of the country that you are undertaking the assessment. So there is the issue of validation that at the end of the day, there will be that ownership of the entire process by the entire policy making actors within an ecosystem of policy making. So those are the objectives and the outcomes. Sometimes I have a weakness of rushing through things, but those are the two main objectives that anchoring on the formulation and the implementation, and then the outcomes again running through the entire process. So I would like now to take it back to the participants, and having read the concept note that has been shared with you, and the tools that have been provided in the Google Classroom, perhaps you've come up with some expectations as far as this training is concerned. And I would like to give you this as a chance. I don't know, in my presentation mode, I can't see I can just exit the presentation mode so that I can see the participants. So you can shoot up your hand and also bring out some of the expectations that already are crossing your mind as far as this training is concerned. Welcome.
Do we have any questions from the floor, participants? If you can raise your hand, that will be helpful.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's Gabriel from
yes,
the
Gabriel.
From the Republic of Botswana.
Yes.
I, Gabriel.
Charles from
I, Gabriel Baimedi. I'm expecting that this training workshop will familiarize us as trainees on policy models, more especially policy model that will help us in drawing new policies or expanding on our policies that are existing, or domesticating the policy, the regional our national policy to regional policies, and also hoping that in most countries or in most regions, you'll find that as countries, we don't do policy analysis in terms of providing the post-mortem analysis with regard to particular policies, more especially in agriculture, so that we can come up with a better better evidence in terms of formulating or renewing our policies. I think this training workshop will help us to give us that strength in terms of diagonizing in this particular area. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Jackson, please continue.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And the tool actually is more of a diagnosis tool, and it's checking on the existing policies, really. And the purpose is that we learn from what we have also in terms of moving forward, so that we don't replicate on the many mistakes perhaps we made in the past, or the many shortcomings that our policies would be having. Any other comments from any other participants in terms of expectation? There is Dr. I wish I can pronounce it. Dr. Crashes. I hope I did so. You raise your hand, Dr. Crashes, or you already spoke?
Dear Gracias from Tanzania. Dear Gracias.
Yes. I just a quick one. My concern is that it will not be too theoretical. It will be practical. These things will come to be applied in our country's context. So I expect that this training will be more of practical, not too theoretical. Appreciating the tools and the what. Thanks.
Absolutely. There will be an exercise. We just want to have the conceptual understanding initially, then subsequently the tool already is mounted on a computer-aided personal interview tool, Corpo Collect, and we will do an assessment and even see the actual results and even question some of those results. Yes, it will be practical. Any other concern? So we have a response from Tanzania, Chris Chonga from Zimbabwe. Any expectation on this or any concern from what I've just presented?
Okay.
Okay then, I'll see, but you can just take it up from there.
All right. So thank you very much, Dr. Jackson Langat, for that presentation of the objectives, and also thanks to participants who have given some interventions, concerns, or comments on that presentation from Dr. Jackson Langat. If you have any more questions or comments, please just place them in the chat box to everyone and we'll be able to pick them up. Moving on our agenda, let me now welcome Dr. Kwaku Antwi. I hope I've pronounced that properly, Kwaku. And he is from FARA. Dr. Kwaku will be presenting some experiences from Africa in the use of this very tool that we are training you on today. So Dr. Kwaku, I welcome you to the podium.
Thank you very much, Naleshebo, for inviting me to make a presentation on our experiences so far on the continent. Before then, let me again thank you for inviting us to be part of this training. We are very much excited and happy to be part of it. And I wish to commend CADESA for taking this up since we had the training for the SROs and then the other African institutions, including RENAPRI. That is a spirit of the CADEP-XP4 project. Seeing all of us, working together is the spirit behind it. And so we at FARA are very grateful, and we thank you and commend you for taking this up. And also thank RENAPRI for, inviting us to be part of this training. I hope that by the end of the training, the expectations that have been expressed by the participants will be realized. And I'm also happy to see that we have participants from about 10 countries, and then with the RENAPRI staff in other places all joining. I believe that the expectations that have been expressed so far will be realized by the end of this training. So thank you very much once again for giving Farah the opportunity to be part of this training. So as I introduced myself earlier, my name is Kweku Enchi, and I work with Farah as the policy officer. And this activity, the PPI, and then its training falls under the units where I work. And so we are here to participate in it and to make a presentation on our experiences so far. So without wasting much time, I would go straight to the presentation. I hope my screen can be seen.
Yes, we can see your screens.
Okay.
Yes, can be seen.
Okay, so thank you very much. So as a way of introduction, I would say that the PPI, as we all know, is a tool that helps us to assess policies or existing policies in terms of its formulation and implementation. You agree with me that the policy cycle has so many nodes, and the formulation and the implementation nodes are very important. I also realized somebody talking about the fact that by the end of the training, we would be able to come up with models and then have new policies and all that. This particular tool is used for existing policies to learn lessons. You agree with me that at the last point of any policy cycle is the evaluation of that policy. And so then it becomes necessary to undertake these activities to help us to understand where we went wrong and what can be done to improve on existing policies and future policies that will be formulated and implemented. And so I will just share briefly some experiences that we've had in terms of implementing the tool. Okay, so let me say that so far we have been able to have experiences from 4 countries on the continent, and we hope this number improves as the SROs take up the training and then the assessment. So we've done assessment in Ghana, we've done assessment in Rwanda, we've done assessment in Malawi and in Egypt. And let me state that these assessments looked at only one policy document, okay? It is not the entire policy documents of these countries that were assessed. In fact, these assessments were also done as a pilot to see how the PPI would work and to find out whether there was a need to fine tune it and to improve it or whatever. And so these were also done as pilots. And so I will just share with you the experiences we had in implementing the tool in these countries. And looking at the time I have, I know I don't have so much time, and so I don't intend to bore you with any long presentation. So I'll just go through the experiences and then some of the scores. I mean, the scores that we got from the countries, I'll share them with you. And then also we will discuss going forward what has to be done to be able to ensure that we are able to undertake these assessments at our country level, the kind of things that have to be put in place to ensure that the assessment process is done. So briefly on the countries, so like I mentioned, we have Ghana, Egypt, Malawi, and Rwanda. And what we did, the total number of the team composition for Ghana was 14, Egypt was 9, Malawi is 10, Rwanda was also 10. And let me say that these are not cast in concrete. There are no rules attached to the number of people that should form the country policy team. It's rather has to do with the composition, the people we bring along to form the team. And so if you can see, for Ghana like this, we have people from CSIR STEPRI. STEPRI is the policy branch of the Center, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. We had people from Ministry of Food and Agriculture. We had representatives from the Ministry of Finance, representatives from the Ministry of Trade and Industry. We have farmer reps. We have Ministry of Education. We have Ministry of Local Governments, and then Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology, as well as the Ministry of Health. Now you realize that for Ghana, the people from these institutions came together because they realized that in assessing whatever policy, these institutions or these ministries were found to be very relevant in policy formulation and implementation. And so there was a need to bring them together. It will vary, the composition or the institutions that form the team will definitely vary from country to country. And so when you look through the list I have, you realize that the ministries or the composition from Ghana is different from the composition of Rwanda, which is also different from the Ministry of Malawi. But the core point is that if you are assessing, say, a policy document from the Ministry of Trade and Industry, you cannot do without that ministry. That ministry has to be part of the team. If you are assessing a policy from Ministry of Agriculture, you cannot do without getting people from the Ministry of Agriculture to be part of the team. And later on, you will see that we don't also just bring people, but then we bring people who can speak to policies, people who can have influence in the formulation and then implementation of these policies, so that we can get the political buy-ins to be able to undertake the exercise. So let me say that it was yesterday I realized that maybe to be able to appreciate the thematic areas and then how the scoring is done, maybe we could have probably done a bit of the whole thing before this presentation, so that participants could appreciate some of the things we have. For example, if you say thematic area 1, sustainable productivity in major farming system, what do we mean? But I think because the concept notes and then some other relevant documents were shared, participants can still appreciate these things that are being shown. So for Ghana, for instance, you find the policy team on your right-hand side, and then these are the scores that came up in terms of policy formulation and policy implementation. The PI is the implementation, the PF is the formulation. And so on this thematic area, the overall score for Ghana was 64.3. And then the overall score for policy formulation was 80.3. I believe by the end of the training, we would appreciate these things. And I mean, for you to understand very well and appreciate what we mean by a policy implementation score being 64 and a policy formulation score being 80. You definitely appreciate and understand them at the end of the training. So this is under thematic area 1. When you take the assessment tool, each document that you assess would have to be, as it were, broken down into thematic areas. And so you assess the document based on the thematic area. So for Ghana, the policy document that was assessed, the thematic area 1 had this score. The thematic area 2, which talked about food system and value chains, had the overall score of policy implementation to be 68.5, and then that of the formulation to be 86.5. And the same thing applied to thematic area 3, that talked about biodiversity and natural resource management. You find the overall score being 78.5 and then 65 for the implementation. thematic area 4, mega trends, you find the scores for implementation being 61.7, and then for formulation being 82. So for Ghana, when we put all the thematic areas together, we found out that the policy formulation had a score of 82, and then the policy implementation had a score of 65. And let me say that this was just one policy document that was assessed, not the entire policies of the country, because the PPI allows us to assess one policy at a time. So you can have a policy for Ministry of Trade, like in our case, we are looking at cross-border trade. What policies exist? So you take that policy and assess it and then come up with your scores. That score might be different when you analyze policies from the agricultural sector, or policies from the education sector, or policies from the health sector. So let me emphasize again that this is just score for one policy area, one policy document. Okay, so for Ghana, the overall score for the formulation was 82, and the score for the implementation was 65. And let me say that we went through the same processes. We assessed all the thematic areas for the policies that were presented to us in the various countries. And so for Egypt, we looked at all the 4 thematic areas. And then with the overall score for Egypt was 78.5 for formulation, and then for implementation was 69. And there on the right-hand side, again, is the policy team for Egypt. For Malawi, we had the implementation to be 54, and then 63.5 for a formulation. And again, these are scores for particular policies, not the entire policies of the country, no, but for particular policies. For Rwanda, we had the overall score to be 83 for policy formulation, and then for policy implementation, we had it to be 72.5. You can see that, okay, so this is the general score. This screen shows the overall score for all the countries that were assessed. And you realize from this chart that in each of the countries, the policy formulation had higher scores than the policy implementation index. I mean, for Ghana, for Rwanda, Malawi, and Egypt, it cuts across. And so that tells us that, you know, we need to do more in terms of our policy implementation. And so again, you realize that the scores are not the same for all the countries, but then they vary. And we came up with some factors that, you know, we realized were contributing to the variations that we had in the various countries. And some of the factors included inadequate consultations and sensitization of actors during the policy formulation. Okay. We also had limited implementation and regulatory frameworks. Most of the policies were there. We found that the policies were there, but in terms of implementation plans, most of these policies did not have implementation plans. And when you don't have implementation plan, definitely your implementation will be weak. And so that is one of the reasons or the factors that we had. We also realized that coordination among institutions and partners were also weak. And so you find that partners were implementing, you know, same activities, but at different levels and at different areas. Meanwhile, all activities are being implemented to achieve same policy goals. There was no coordination and partnership. And of course, capacity for implementation was also found to be very low, and then limited or no government budgets. Because here again, sensitization was so poor. We found out that sensitization was poor, and we also realized that policy makers, the technocrats were not able to convince political leaders as to why resources should be committed to policy formulation and implementation, and why there had to be investment in these areas. Because once you get your formulation and your implementation wrong, it means you are heading for the worst. So these are some of the things that we found in these 4 countries that, you know, militated against effective policy formulation and implementation. And so going forward, we have learned some lessons, and it's good that I share these lessons with you, especially as you are about to do or undertake these activities at a national level. There has to be the need to work closely with the focal points or the focal persons. What we realized in some of the countries that we worked in was that there was a disjoint between the focal persons and the SROs and also the other policy implementers. And that led to a break in communication, a break in communication, and also low level of commitment to this exercise. So going forward, there's a need, the focal persons who are here, we need to also avail ourselves for us to be able to be reached. I know most of you are busy, but even in your busy schedules, try and find time and space to work with the other partners so that the exercise can go on smoothly. There's also the need for sensitization. We need to sensitize our policymakers. You know, these guys are politicians, and especially in this part of our continent where power changes, you know, quite often, we need to sensitize them more to be able to get their buy-ins as to how and why they will have to be committed to policy formulation and implementation. You know, political parties come to power with their manifestos. And then most often than not, when they come, they try to implement their manifestos and give it a name as policies. No, we should be able to convince them as to why existing policies need to be followed, rather than throwing them away and bringing in party manifestos and plans and calling them policies to be implemented. We need to sensitize them and get their buy-ins. The policy teams I've already mentioned that it has to be made up of people who can speak to policy, people who are of influence and can influence policy directions, people who can speak to policy, people who can interact with high level political people to get their support. Because at the end of the day, the work of the policy teams will have to have influence. And so we need to get people who are of influence to be able to be part of. And periodic analysis is also recommended. This is not one-off exercise. Today or this year, you can be doing analysis on trade policies. The following year, you can be doing analysis on agricultural policies. You can be doing analysis on education policies. And so it's not one thing that is done and it's ended and it's concluded. No, it's something that needs to be done periodically as time goes on. We need to be undertaking these things. And then strong network and collaboration is also important. For you to be successful, you need strong network, you need strong collaboration with all stakeholders, all the major stakeholders within that frame. If it is the agricultural sector, you are working with the farmers, the traders, the transporters, you know, the aggregators, all of them need to be networked. You need to work closely with them, form strong collaboration and partnership with these people so that you can be successful in these analysis. And one thing that can also help is to come up, this one probably goes to CADESA, is to come up with a league table so that when countries see their position on the league table, then it will sort of, as it were, encourage them to do more. If they see one country being ranked above them, they will be encouraged to do more. If countries also find themselves at the top, they wouldn't want to go down the table at the next round of ranking. And so they will also put in more measures to be able to sustain that position. So having a league table also is something that can encourage countries to be able to have this kind of exercise being done all the time. And then you also agree that going forward, you wouldn't have RENAPRI or CADESA financing these activities in our various countries. It behoves on us to be able to raise resources in country to be able to undertake this exercise. And that is why I said earlier on that it is important that we can have people of influence, people who can speak to even budgets, people who can commit resources to undertake these kind of activities. And so basically, these are the experiences that we've had, and these are the areas that we propose that we need to strengthen and look at going forward, so that the exercise, which is very important, can continue to be undertaken at the national level, so that policy formulation and implementation in our various countries and on the continent as a whole will improve. It is only that through that process that we can get the agricultural sector, the trade sector, the research, and all the other sectors being improved for effective implementation, and also to improve our food systems on the continent. So on that note, I wish to thank you for your audience, and I'm available and ready for questions and comments if there are any. Thank you very much, and over to you, Malishebo.
Thank you, Dr. Kweku. So participants, the floor is open. I'm sure you agree with me that that was a very enriching presentation on the experiences from Africa on the use of this tool. So the floor is open for those of you who have questions, comments, points for clarification. Do we have any hands up? Has anybody raised their hand, or shall we just take it that everybody's clear? I see a hand up from Tanzania.
Yeah.
Dio, gracias.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kwaku, for the good presentation about the tool. My question or my concern is really on the methodology. We are not sure on what methodology used, particularly coming up with the scores. What was the methodology? Who were the respondents? Were those the policy teams, or did you go through the people, the people who are implementing this policy and formulating the policy? I think it was not clear on the methodology. But one thing, you indicated that you score for one policy area. But my concern is on the policy interactions. One policy depends on the other, and even the priorities of each country differ. So it is good that that tool incorporates this policy interactions, because at country level sometimes we come up with a list of policy areas, and if we wanted to allocate resources, you need to have priorities. Priority number one, priority number two, priority number three. So if you go just to one policy area and you come up with the recommendation, I think it will not be healthy. Yeah. Another thing, you have indicated that there was variations of scores across countries. I don't know whether if this tool allows to see this, what is the cause of those variations? These countries, our countries differ in terms of context, economy, and whatever. So does this tool allow to look or to assess for those cross variations across countries? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Malishebo, how do you want me to, do I respond to each of them, or I should take quite a number and then address them together?
I think take a few and then address them together. So I see a hand from Dominic Namanyungu from Zambia. Welcome, Dominic.
Thank you so much, Madam. Yeah, I just want the presenter to comment on two things. The first one, who is influential? The policy is written, but who influences the policy implementation? I saw those graphs somewhere a little bit high, some very low, even if the policy is there. But who is that influential person who influences the policy implementation? That is one thing. Then the other thing, in terms of resource mobilization, how do the leadership, the politician, buy into financing those policies according to the way they have been formulated? I think let me just end there. Those two things I would appreciate if they are handled. Thank you.
Okay, we have 3 more questions. I can see some hands up. There is Moses Ngosa. Please, Moses, your question.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to understand thank you for the good presentation. From my own observation, in terms of policy we have talked about, what's the challenge most of the time in some countries is the policy instruments to be used for implementation. So I just wanted to find out from the presenter on if they had gone in detail to look at what policy instrument implementation have been used in those countries which were looked at, and what can be the advice to other countries in terms of uplifting policy implementation instrument, because having a policy is one thing, but the implementation instruments they are going to use are very key. Thank you.
Okay, Moses, thank you for your question. We'll take a question. Yeah, we'll take the question from Mtapela, and then another question. Yes, who is that?
Gabriel.
Gabriel, just hold on. Could you just hold on 1 minute? We will let you ask your question soon. There is a question from Mtapela. Somebody, there's a phone here called Mtapela.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, it's Tapela from Botswana. And what I observed in the presentation, which was quite enlightening, is that the implementation tends to be low, while the formulation is mostly high in most of these countries. So what I want to know is, in evaluating the formulation and the implementation of these policies, does the methodology also look and interrogate at the specific policy so that they can see whether it was well crafted, and maybe the reason why it's not being implemented because it is not fully crafted, it's conflicting other policies and so forth, or it's just an observation that the policy does exist and it's not being implemented fully. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay, then we have somebody who is reflected here as user. User, who is on this? Somebody is called user.
Hello.
Yes, user. Who is this one? Please go ahead and ask your question.
Charles Chinkunta from Malawi.
Okay. Charles, go ahead.
I joined late.
Yes, please ask your question.
I think you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
You can hear me, right?
We can hear you. Yes, please ask your question, Charles.
Okay, so my question is, what is the cutoff point? You're looking at the percentages. We have seen the percentages for policy formulation. We have seen the rate of implementation. So I was just wondering if there are certain thresholds where we can say at this level, policy implementation is right on track, or it's good, or is it just does it mean it has to be 100% policy formulation, 100% implementation? That is my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello.
All right. So Kwaku, let's get a question from Gabriel, and then we can ask you to respond to those questions first. So Gabriel, please ask your question. Charles, I've seen your hand. I'll come back to you.
Yeah, it's Gabriel from the Republic of Botswana, Minister of Agriculture. Let me start by saying thank you for a very good presentation, sir. My question is, I thought maybe your presentation will touch on the issues of policy costing versus budgeting, because from my experience, I've realized most of the policies that have been crafted, you find that they were not costed. So that's why maybe when it comes to issues of implementation and resource mobilization, it's very difficult in most developing countries. Maybe if you can touch on those issues, or you can incorporate issues of policy costing in your methodology, maybe it can assist us on how to move forward in terms of policy implementation, because we have realized that most countries are scoring very low. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Gabriel. Dr. Kwaku, please respond to those questions.
Yes, thank you very much for these questions and then the concerns. It tells me that you were following very well in the presentation, and I'm grateful for that. So let me move on to respond to them. Geogracius, the first person who spoke, wanted to know how the scores were done. And then he also spoke about the fact that if we are using it for just one policy area, how does the other policies come in? Because policies are usually interrelated and there are policy interactions. That is also true. And then the causes of the variations, those were his concerns. Now, let me say that in terms of the methodology, before my presentation, I alluded to the fact that probably my presentation should have come after you have gone through the tool itself, for you to appreciate how the scores are done, or the scores are arrived at. As we go through the training, I believe Emmanuel and then Jackson will do justice to that. They will show you how the scores are done. They are not arbitrary, and they are done to the various aspects of the policy themes. When you take a policy theme, and they will take you through all these things once again. When you take each policy themes, they are what we call the policy dimensions, okay? And so you look at the various dimensions and then come up with the scores. Now, one thing about the scores, again, is that they are not scores that are done by one person in a room or at a meeting and it is accepted as the scores. The scores are done, they are validated by the national policy teams. Further, they are validated at a wider stakeholder consultation or validation workshop. So before we say that your score is 1 or 2, then it might have gone through all these processes. And so once it is agreed that the score is 1, then it's a validated score, not by anybody, by experts and by broader stakeholder consultations. And so there are scores that can be relied on. So in terms of the methodology, I wouldn't want to take the work from Emmanuel and then Jackson. They will take us through the methodology, and at the end of the day, you realize that, oh, these are scores that can be relied on to be able to make decisions or take decisions. And so I would leave the methodology aspect for now, because they would take us through that. I wouldn't want to take the wind out of whatever they are going to say. And so they would address those issues. Yes, it is true that for each policy, there are policy interactions. And so when I say that you look at one policy area, it doesn't mean that that is the only thing you are looking at. And in fact, when you go through the various dimensions that bring us the scores, one of the dimensions talks about how a certain policy interacts with other policies within the country, within the sub-region as the CADESA sub-region, and also within the continental, at the continental level. So if a policy will score high, that policy must speak with other policies within a country. It must speak with a regional, a sub-regional policy. It must speak to a continental policy, and it must speak to the global policy, that is the SDGs. So all these things are things that we assess a particular policy on. So if a policy is not even speaking to these regional, continental, and global policies, then it means it's a weak policy. Okay, so all these things will be seen or will be looked at during the assessment, and then a particular score is given. So if you are scored low because your policy is not speaking to other policies within your country, within the sub-region, and within the continent, then it's a wake-up call for all of us to look at how these policies are formulated, and so that we can have higher scores and then improve on formulation processes. So those are the kind of things that take place. And so you also spoke about the causes of the variation. I think in the presentation, I made some of the things that we found. I displayed some of them. The fact that in some countries, there are even no policy implementation plans. The policies are there, but then there are no implementation plans. If you have that kind of situation, definitely there will be a variation with your score and a score with a country that has a good implementation plan and has the resources to implement those policies. Also, all those things are things the tool is going to look at. And so by the time you go through the methodology of coming up with the scores, you appreciate how these things are done and how the scores come up, and the fact that we can really rely on these scores. Dominic spoke about who are influential people. I said that the team should be able to be made up of people who can speak to policy, people who have the ears of our political leaders. Okay, and so in Ghana here, when I displayed the composition of the team, you realize that we have people, for example, at the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, we have the whole chief director, who is a technical advisor to the Minister of Food and or Minister in charge of Food and Agriculture. And so definitely that person in his capacity is close to a political leader and close to the source of these policies. Okay, so those are the kind of people we are looking at. Of course, if you come up with a policy team that is made up of junior staff, let me put it that way, who do not have that influence or who cannot even take some policy decisions, then it becomes difficult to push your policies through or to push your findings through. Okay, and that ties in again with the resources, because you need resources to do these things. So if you're able to get the buy-ins of these influential people, they are the ones who are controlling the budgets. They are the ones who they are the ones holding the purse. And so if they dedicate some resources for, policy analysis, then we are sure that we can get those resources to implement these analysis as we want to. And so when we talk of people of influence, we are talking about people who are close to or who are even in a position to control budgets, who are in a position to make decisions that are binding, and who are also able to make some political decisions. So those are the kind of people we are looking at. And of course, also technocrats, because you know that, I mean, in some areas, CSOs are also very influential. If we get the buy-ins of CSOs, they can push our costs in terms of ensuring these policies are improvement in terms of implementation and formulation. Moses spoke about the most policies not having a plan, okay, or methodology to implement them. And that ties into Chapela's question of low implementation. Definitely, when you have a policy without an implementation plan, I mean, there's no way to be able to be effective, because it's the plan that tells you what to do to be able to implement that policy effectively. But unfortunately, as we went through the countries and with our experiences, we realized there were some policies, they were nicely crafted, they were nicely done, but then they had no implementation plans. And so definitely when you have issues like this, then it becomes difficult and the problem.
Hello, have we lost Kwaku? Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Kwaku, you were muted.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I'm just, okay. Yes, so I was saying that these countries that do not have implementation plans, it becomes difficult to have a path to chart, because it is the plan that directs you as to what you have to do to be able to implement that policy. But unfortunately, like I mentioned, we have some policies on our continent that do not have any plans. And most of these were found to be policies that were formulated by previous governments. New governments take over and they don't have that, or they lack that will, political will, to be able to put in plans and strategies to ensure that these policies see the light of day. So, of course, again, when you go through the methodology and you find out that there's a policy that exists without an implementation plan, then that particular policy scores low. And then you begin to ask yourself, why is it having a low mark or a low score? Then you tell yourself, oh, because it has no implementation plan. So if it has no implementation plan, then what has to be done? One thing about this policy is that it also helps us to learn lessons as to why we are performing poorly or why we are performing well. And so when you find out that it's because of A, B, C, D, why you are having a low mark, then it becomes a lesson for you to learn, so that going forward, you ensure that your policies have implementation plans, and the existing ones that do not have plans, we put in measures in place to ensure that we draft or we come up with plans to ensure that they are well implemented. Then one other thing again is that it also helps countries to learn from each other. Like I displayed that of Ghana and then Namibia, sorry, Ghana, Rwanda, and the rest. Okay, so Rwanda can learn from Ghana. Probably there's something Ghana is doing that Rwanda is not doing. They can learn, they can share experiences. Ghana can learn from Malawi. Ghana can learn from Egypt. Egypt can learn. So it allows us to be able to share lessons amongst us as countries. Okay, so that is one good thing about the tool as well. Charles was asking about threshold, and again, here we don't have any threshold, but you and I believe that, I mean, from our school and our exams and all those things, if you have a percentage of 100 and you want to be seen as doing well, you wouldn't want to be seen as doing well or getting a mark lower than 50, okay, or even 50. But the essence here is that, for example, if Malawi is scoring 40 in terms of implementation, and Rwanda, or say, I want to pick another country, say Aswanti is scoring like 80, okay? So the question is that, why is Malawi scoring 40 in implementation and Aswanti scoring 80? Definitely, once the league table comes out and there's that comparison, then countries begin to learn from each other. And then now we begin to see improvements, because we begin to appreciate what others are doing that we are not doing, or what we are doing that others are not doing, so that there's that kind of experience sharing for. So there's no threshold score. That if you have 50 means you are doing well, or if you have 100, it means you are doing well. I mean, you and I know that ideally we wish that we all score 100, but of course that is an ideal situation, and practically that might not be possible. But we also don't expect ourselves to find ourselves in an area of 20% or 30% or 40%, those areas. Gabriel spoke about costing. Again, let me say that it is one of the dimensions that the methodology speaks about, because you cannot have a policy without having a cost item to it. And so if you find any policy without any expenditure or without any costing, then that means that that policy is a weak policy, because definitely it's going to have implications on its implementation. So if you have a policy without costing, it means that you are going to score very low at your policy formulation level. And then you ask yourself, why is your formulation score so low? Then you now answer, oh, because we realize that this policy document didn't even have a cost or a costing element. And if it doesn't have a costing element, definitely it becomes a challenge, and it becomes, you know, a weak point of that policy and that you are trying to implement. So the methodology will address all these dimensions of policy. So when it comes to the implementation, we look at all those things, and then we can move on. So basically, I understand I'm taking so much time, but then these are the responses to the concerns that you have raised. I hope I've been able to address some of them, not all, if not all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kwaku, for, first of all, your rich presentation. Thanks to the participants for those questions, which signify interest in this tool that is being presented. So I know you've asked a lot of questions, and I believe that the next presentation will actually be unveiling this tool. So during that presentation, I think a lot of detail will be provided by the next presenter. But and so just to thank you for this really, really interesting presentation, Dr. Kwaku. So what we would like to do now, in the interest of time, is that we would like to take a short break. We are going to take a 10-minute break, and we expect everybody to be back here at 11:52. It is now 11:42. So at 11:52, we are going to unveil this tool, and it will be presented by Dr. Emmanuel Makiwa, who is from the RENAPRI network from the University of Zimbabwe, and he will be presenting the AIS-PPI tool for you. So please stretch out your legs, and let's come back here at 11:52 Central African time so that we can continue. And that will really be the last activity for today, because after that, the countries will be expected, I think, to do some work through the Google Drive document. So this presentation will be the last presentation. Then there'll be some other work that the countries have to do via Google Docs. So we'll see you then at 11:52. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So welcome back. I hope you had the opportunity to stretch your legs and get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee to come back and receive this presentation of the AIS-PPI tool. So Dr. Emmanuel, I'm hoping that you are ready.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so I'd like to welcome Dr. Emmanuel Makiwa to make this presentation of the AIS-PPI tool. And my hope is that in his presentation, Dr. Emmanuel will respond further to the questions that had been asked when both Dr. Langat and Dr. Kwaku made their presentations. So he will be detailed, and I think he will present some of, he will make a presentation that may answer some of your questions. If you have more questions, of course, they will be welcome. So Dr. Emmanuel, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nalishebo, for giving this opportunity to do the presentation on the Agricultural Innovation Systems Policy Practice Index, AIS-PPI. I acknowledge what Dr. Kwaku indicated, that probably we could have started with this presentation, then later on we could now go into the experiences from Africa. Sorry for that oversight, but nonetheless, I think there is the flow, we'll maintain it given this presentation. And also it's good that we have participants from all over Southern Africa and beyond, Swatini, Malawi, Botswana, Mozambique, Namibia, Tanzania, Zambia, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. Thank you very much for joining this presentation. I'll first start with the question that was in the chat box from George Omiat. He said, can the presenter please first define for us what a policy is and what characteristics, what characterizes a policy? I'm happy to tell George to tell George that this will will be covered in this presentation, which is an extension from what Dr. Kwaku has presented. Policy support for science, technology, and innovation in Africa has not been encouraging, given the underperformance of what is happening in most of our sectors, our agriculture sectors in SADC and even the African region. But we know that policy plays an important role in making science work for development. So policy actually is a link that is a tool that can make us, that can let us link science to development. But however, in the same vein, it's pointless to have a good policy formulation, but not follow up with implementation. So I think this is what we are used in Africa, that we spend a lot of money on formulation, but now we come to implementation. We find that it's either we don't implement at all or we implement halfway, right? So we will have wasted resources which could actually have gone somewhere. But what we know is that science can and should drive transformation for agriculture in society in Africa. So we have PPI, which is the Policy Practice Index, to answer that challenge, to give us a way to address that, so that we can make science work for transforming our agriculture. So what is required now is that we operationalize this tool. We've heard from Dr. Kwaku in terms of countries that have been trained or that are using, that have already started this the use of this tool. So we also need other countries also to use to operational to get this tool, but also even to operationalize it. So what it means that this training for PPI will not only be critical that the participants know that there is a tool that is called PPI, but we also want to use it to advance the policy aspect of the CADAP XP4 project. Right? What is a policy? policy is a deliberate set of principles to guide decisions and achieve rational outcomes. So we will say now, these are the principles that we have, then these will guide us to actually to achieve our goals. It comes as a statement of intent and it is implemented through a procedure or a protocol. So there's a certain way of implementing policy depending on how we have come up with it. And also it will give us guide in terms of actions. These actions will ensure that we are most likely to achieve our desired goal because we will have done it systematically. But what we also need to know is that policy differs from laws or rules. Because laws and rules compel us to say, no, can you do this behavior or you should not do this behavior. Now, what differs with these laws and rules and regulations, how they differ from policy is that policy provides the strategic frameworks, right? They say this is the framework that we're going to use to achieve our goals. Probably the goals could be for sustainable food and nutritional security, or these goals could be to alleviate poverty. So policy will direct or redirect resources to where they are most needed by engaging the stakeholders, the beneficiaries, including the policymakers, the rural stakeholders, private sector, government departments, so that we create a desired change to improve the livelihoods. So policy as a concept is an overall plan that we can come up as a country, or as a region, or as a continent. The policy will give principles to achieve the desired goal or outcome. It is also a commitment. It gives a commitment or a statement of intent. So it's also calls for accountability, because when we are committed, probably as a government, as members of parliament, as government stakeholders, as private sector, then we give that commitment. It means that we are actually asking for accountability, because whatever happens beyond or outside the policy, we will say now, but you committed to do this. What are you doing now? So actually by coming up with a policy, it means that we are actually making us everyone accountable, whoever is involved in that sector. It also gives a course of action. So it will list the sequence of activities that will allow us to achieve a desired goal. So it will say, for us to achieve this goal, we have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Without policy, the desired outcome that we want to achieve in a sequence of events becomes difficult to arrive at, because we will not have direction. Policy gives us direction. So if we don't have direction, we might still have a desired outcome, but now it will be difficult because we don't have a way to say, now, can we go this way? Then policy itself, it actually exists at different levels. First one is national, individual, organization. So we can have a policy at national level, individual level, and also organization. Even the national, we can also even have it at the regional, like at SADC. We can also have the CADAP, for instance, at the continental level. Then the features of a policy, irrespective of what level we have given the policy, there are common features that are found in all of the policies. So this, like we have indicated earlier on, it creates framework of action. It also is a decision guidance. So whatever we do, it guides us. So we'll actually look into a policy to say, now, how do you think? How can we do these things? Then we ask policy for guidance. The most important factor that Kwakwe has indicated is grounded in a legitimate authority. So a policy not grounded by the constitution of a country or sectoral rules and regulations will not be implemented. We've come up with a policy, but that policy has not been approved by parliament. You agree with me that no one is going to support that policy. So we need a policy, and that policy should be in our constitution, should be approved by the members of parliament so that it can be implemented. It can also have the budget, allocation, national budget allocation. But if that is not the case, that policy will not be implemented. And the policy does not come as something that we speak, but it's actually a written product. We need a document. So someone asked us, where is the food and nutritional policy? There should be a document, right? That makes that policy a living product. And also policy is an ongoing process. It's not, you cannot implement policy in one day. It goes over the years. And it's never cast in stone. So whatever we have put in policy, we are suggestions that we want. So we might change them as we implement that policy. right? So we can suggest now, let's improve this one, let's improve this activity, let's improve that course of action, because it's never cast in stone, because it's flexible to allow the changes in the environment. It's also time bound. So we will say our policy is for 5 years. So it's given time. So this policy, we are going to implement it from 2020 to 2025. Then we have another document from 20 that we have reviewed from 2025 to 2030, something like that. So it gives room to review. So there are rooms that we need to, there's a room that we need to do to allow the policy to be reviewed. Good news is that the PPI takes into consideration all these features that we have indicated, right? Since because we said the policy can be done at different levels, but for us now, we are going to zero in on the public policy. So public policy, what is it? It's developed by the government in cooperation with all stakeholders to influence actors working in a given sector, and the procedures and processes built into it to guide working together to achieve a common goal. So policy now allows us to work together. It gives us procedures and processes. So the major thing here, or the highlight, is that working together, right? We'll emphasize this in our presentation, right? Types of policies, public policies, we've got regulatory policies. So these influence behavior of actors. For instance, if we've got governments and stakeholders want to achieve a certain goal, so this policy will require collaborative working together of several government ministries and other stakeholders to ensure that the needs of farmers are met. So in that case, this is a regulatory policy. It's guiding, it's influencing people to change their behavior so that we can meet and achieve a certain goal. Then we have also what we call constituent policies. These ones are basically require reorganization, or we can call them executive power policies. So these policies, for instance, bring two sectors together. For instance, sports and education might be 2 sectors, but now a policy can bring this together. Water and agriculture can be separate ministries, but now, given the constituent policy, we can say now, can we combine these sectors so that they work together, and also effectively ensure that we achieve our goals that we have set. Now, policies also, since we have said there are different levels, and they speak to each other, these levels. For instance, we can start, it doesn't matter where we start, we can start at global or we can start at national. It will not matter, because as you can see, they are actually double arrows, which means that there's feedback. Something goes up, but something comes down. So we can start at national level. Usually at national level, we have got what we call national agricultural policies, and we also have our targets. For instance, we say agriculture should contribute 10% of the GDP. Yeah, then that national policy should actually speak to the regional policy. The regional policy here, like for instance, we're in SADC, so there should be a regional policy in SADC, I think, which is already there. So that regional agriculture policy will also have its targets. Actually, those targets are actually just a combination or amalgamation of the national targets. Then after that, the regional policy will feed into the continental policy. In this case, we can talk of CADAP, for instance, or the S3A. Then in that case, our targets will be the Malabo targets. I think everyone is conservative with those ones. But also these are fed up, as you can see, are fed from the targets that we get from the region, which are fed by the targets from the national. Then we go to the upper level, global. So global, we are talking about the SDGs, SDG number 1, number 2, number 3, and so forth. But these also, they actually also control or guide what our targets at the continental, also which guide the targets at regional and also at national. Then the policy now, when you are implementing policy, we start with a broad base. So we talk nearly of everything that we want towards maybe food security, for instance. But now for us to be able to implement or to get the desired results, we need to come up with the implementation framework where we state who are the stakeholders who implement this, who are responsible, what is the time frame, right, or for set specific activities of the policy. So we have narrowed it down because some of the things we might not be able to implement. But we'll also even narrow down in terms of the investment plan, budget, and actions. So we'll be now making the implementation framework work when you do this, when we allocate the budget, when we do the plan, make the budgets, and also the actions. Then remember, we're talking about the policy practice index. So the index part of it is actually a descriptive, it's a number or a value that you give to signal what is happening. So we are signaling what is happening. So basically, for instance, in a policy area like the crop protection or agricultural biodiversity. So by saying that we are giving signal by a number, such that if someone says 5, it means something. It's a signal of something that we are doing something right. Then if someone says, oh, no, the index is 1, it might mean that we have to flag. There is a red flag that we need to put so that we improve, right? So there is a signal which is given by a value on what is happening in that policy area. And also the policy practice index shows how far we have achieved in a given year, right? So this works on a yearly basis, right? But we are talking about what we have achieved in a year so that we can influence the future. For instance, if we have our indicators showing that we have 2, so it means that we need actually to improve next year, right? We don't want to see us again at 2 or even lower 1. We want maybe to go to 3, to 4, or to 5. So the PPI influences the future given what we have achieved in a particular year. Then these indicators also are linked by a reference value or a policy target to compare how we are doing. So what it means that we have the number, maybe we scored 1 for a particular indicator. Then what it means that we can compare 1 with another reference value. So in our case, because our index is from 1 to 5. So if we have scored 1, it means we are supposed to score 5. But now, so there's a certain signal that this 1 is indicating for us. We're supposed to score 5, but we scored 1. So we need actually to now say oh, we are supposed to score, or even another country has scored 5 as we scored 1. So we need actually to see what did we do wrong, so such that this country has scored 5 and we have scored 1. But also even for ourselves, as a country, we could score 5. We can score maybe in a particular year 4. Then the next year we score 3. Then also it's a signal, it's a reference that I know we scored better last year. Why? What happened? What went wrong this particular year? And also because you are also be comparing with other countries, so it actually also we can signal to say now, can you also learn from Malawi? Can you also learn from Botswana? Because we have scored lower than them. So it's actually ensures that we work together, we collaborate, we learn from other countries. Also, we can also even teach other countries or share experiences with other countries. So it's actually a tool that ensures that there's cross multiplication of ideas in terms of the implementation. So the policy index, the AIS-PPI index, is a tool that supports countries to self-assess. Each country should do it on their own. So there's no one who's going to come and say, now, I want to put this index on you. I'm studying you to see how we score. But it's actually done by each country self-assess their policies to measure progress in the application of science, technology, and innovation towards achieving the national, the regional, and also the Malabo targets. Then we are also applying science and technology, looking at technological and institutional innovation, given this tool. And science of institution is important when it comes to advocating, directing resources where they need to be. Because we've done it in a scientific way, we can actually advocate to say now, because we have done this, this is what we have achieved. So can we get more resources? Can we also direct the resources from somewhere to our sector or to this particular dimension of policy? So, right? So we can use this policy to do that. And also we've said science of institutions, right? Why? The more we have institutions coming together, the more we will collaborate and channel resources to desired direction to achieve aim and goals that we need. Because now this tool actually fosters a coming together of institutions, cooperation amongst institutions. Because if we have maybe Minister of Finance on its own, Minister of Agriculture on its own, Minister of Water on its own, Minister of Health on its own, but we're talking probably about nutrition, right? So what it means that we'll be duplicating resources, we'll actually be going different directions, we'll actually be wasting resources, national resources. So if we are talking about nutrition, all these stakeholders, we are forced to come together using this policy, then give each other roles to say, now you are responsible for this health sector, you are responsible maybe for nutrition, health of nutrition, Minister of Agriculture for production, and these stakeholders for this aspect. Then if we do that, we will be saving resources because we are actually multiplying our efforts. We know where we want to go. So we have one goal, and then we might actually, and also even the direction, we ensure that we achieve our aims and goals that we need. So that is actually the most important factor, that we have to work together. I think that is the most important aspect that the PPI2 emphasizes. And also PPI2 was not developed in isolation, but it was developed in recognizing science agenda for agriculture in Africa, and also even the CADAP. So in terms, there are similarities between the PPI and also the agenda that we set for this S3A, but also even the targets. So the way the PPI was formulated was actually following these continental goals. PPI also provides measuring agendas to help account for progress for the set targets. So we can use actually PPI to measure how far we have gone in terms of our progress in achieving S3A and also the CADAP Malabo goals. And also PPI is a component that FARA is working on to inform the Agri-ST barometer, right? So that we can inform also, which is linked to the CADAP goals. Then what is the rationale for having this policy practice index? We have been, in Africa, as we have indicated, our productivity is actually not looking okay, less than 100%, less than 1% in terms of factor productivity. Our growth of population is 2.5% per year. And if you look at the productivity, it's growing. So there's a disparity because our population is growing more than we are doing in terms of our effective productivity. We have our youth who are now being unemployed. They come from university, colleges, but there's no way we can accommodate them in terms of employment. Youth migration also is a factor. Everyone going in Africa, going to promising economies like South Africa, for instance. So, and also food deficiency, we're importing a lot of food, which we're supposed to produce ourselves. Our policies also in terms of failure, I think if you can agree with me, I think you agree with me, that most of our policies actually just die when we've actually done the formation of our policies. They don't see the light of the day after we formulated, once we've wasted our resources. And also we lack pragmatic decision support tools for policy framing, implementation, and monitoring. So we have a light at the end of the tunnel because of this PPI2, which addresses most of these shortcomings we are experiencing. So what is happening in the PPI2? The PPI2 is an advocacy tool that can assist us to create an enabling environment for policy formulation and implementation, because it looks at both of these components, like what we have seen from Dr. Kwaku's presentation. It also builds institutional linkages, like I've indicated. This is the major factor of PPI, that there should be linkages, networks, so that we have amongst the stakeholders, so that we accomplish the strategic innovation platform. It advocates for resource to stimulate investment into the agriculture sector. So using this PPI tool, we can actually go to the policymakers and say, please, can you actually support this sector given this performance? We can also, like we've indicated, we can learn and share from country best practices. Countries which are doing good, we can learn from them. So we can learn from each other and quicken the process for development. We can also track progress in this STI policy implementation. Because we are doing this at an annual basis. So we can track now, did we do good in last year, this year, than last year, this year, than previous years? We can, so we will be tracking the progress. It also is complementary, because for CADAP, we need actually biannual review process so that we can fill in the scorecard. So the PPI2 is actually done, like I said, every year. So we can actually feed this our work from PPI to the AU biannual review processes. Then, just like African development, government would want to be seen not to be on track. So it will be forced using this tool. The government now will be forced to channel resources to the agricultural sector, because we actually will be comparing ourselves with other peers in the region. So we want actually to grow as peers. We don't want someone, a certain country, to be left behind. So this PPI tool can actually also ensure that we are at par. If someone is lagging behind, let's assist that country to join the peers. So PPI can help in countries' progress. Then, as a tool, the PPI actually can contribute directly to 4 out of 10 of Malabo commitments. One of them, commitment to the principles of cardiac processes, the commitment to enhance finance in agriculture, commitment to zero hunger, then also commitment to having poverty by 2025. Right. So let's now zero down on the PPI tool. What is it? What are these features? How do we use it as a methodology? So although we are referring this to PPI because it's a policy practice index, so although we are referring to it as an index, it's actually more than that. It's actually a methodology for supporting policy formulation and implementation. As a characteristic of an index, especially to us to convey our message to the policymakers, should be simple as possible so that we can implement that policy. But also it should give an indication of what the situation is, right? So implementation is okay, but also when we get an index, it should give us a direction. So PPI tool does that because of the total score that we can get maybe from formulation of policy and also implementation. So it can give us what the situation currently have and compare in the previous years and also where we are going. We know that our documents are bulky, so it's difficult to assess various aspects of it. Right? Someone who wants to look at a policy document will find that it might be bulky to understand. But now there's needed a tool to help us untangle the process of assessment. So the PPI tool is applicable for various sector policies. So it's not only for agriculture, but you can even go beyond mining and even the health and other sectors. Now, PPI, what it does is that it divides the policy into policy themes, right? Then after dividing the policy themes are further integrated into policy, the policy themes are then divided into policy dimensions. Then the dimensions are divided again into indicators, right? So these indicators are based on review, right? The indicator is a number like we even need a 1 to 5, but you don't just mention arbitrarily 1, that is, this is 1, this is 2. The number is based on review, is based on knowledge of progress knowledge of progress in the country. So that's why we need experts who are actually based in those sectors. So because they have knowledge of progress, what is happening to the agricultural sector, food security, and other aspects. So it's based on that knowledge, and expert in that knowledge in that sector. Existing documents. So there should also be some documents which support why we have said 1, not 2, or why we've said 5, not 4. So it's not arbitrary. Also based on existing records, we assign, then we are using those tools now, those documents, we assign scores to them and give a justification on why we are assigning a given score to them. So it's not, if someone puts a 5, then they will need to justify why they have put that 5, not 4. Or if they put 4, why did you put 4, not 5, or not 3, right? Given, so someone says 4, then why did you not put 5? What did you need to get 5? And also 4, why did you not maybe get 3, put 3? Why? What is the evidence that is there for you to get 3 or 4 or 5? Once you've assigned the scores, it gives the basis to analyze and assess the score to give an idea on how a given policy was formulated and implemented. So given now the scores that we have, we can see how was this policy formulated and also how was it implemented. And also, if we now have scored lowly, what are we will also ask ourselves, what are the inhibiting factors that are preventing progress, so that we can reformulate our policy. So this is how the PPI tool looks like. So we will have the thematic policy. Under the thematic policy, we have policy dimensions, and under each policy dimensions, we have the indicators, right? So basically, it is 4 thematic policy areas. Then each mathematical areas is a policy dimensions, and also we have the indicators. So the first thematic area that is covered by the AIS-PPI tool is sustainable productivity in major farming systems. Then the dimensions that are there are 6. 1, crop improvement policies, crop protection, livestock production, aquaculture and fisheries, agroforestry and forestry policies, agricultural mechanization. On the thematic theme 2, there is a food system as a value chains, food and nutrition security policies, food safety policies, post-harvest handling, processing, and forest and storage policies. Then we are going to zero in deliberately for the task for CADESA. We'll deliberately look at market and trade policies. Of course, after the training, we as countries will go beyond that. But for the next 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks, we'll be looking at markets and trade policies, and we'll ask you as countries to assist us on that. Thematic theme 3, agricultural diversity and natural resource management. There are 4 dimensions: livelihood security, conservation and enhancement of biodiversity, land conservation and management, water resources and irrigation management. Then on the final theme is on the mega trends and challenges for agriculture in Africa. Things like aspects like climate change, variability, adaptation and mitigation, competition for African farmland, telecommunications revolution, youth in agriculture, women in agriculture, microeconomic management, agricultural knowledge management policies, right? So how does it look like when we talk about the framework? I will quickly go through because of time. I will quickly indicate here what it entails. So, for instance, these are now for each of the dimensions. We will assess them through these indicators. So for a start, of course, we'll need to put our country. For instance, this was a thematic area 1, sustainable productivity in major farming systems. Then we need to choose our dimension. In this case, they chose crop improvement. So here, what it means that we will have, if we are looking at the trades, we will actually be putting the dimension here, market and trade, for these assignments that we are going to point out later. So like an indicator is something that gives us whether we are doing well or we are doing bad. So the first component is policy and legislative framework. So, and the first indicator that we need to deal with to show whether our policy is good or bad is we need to check this indicator problem and causality analysis, clarity and relevance of policy objectives. Then we score here 1 to 5. Then with the major justification. So what does it mean? It means here we have to analyze the problem and causality analysis and relevance of policy objectives. Every good policy should define very well the problem. Because for just like in medical grounds, you can only be successful as a medical doctor when you have correctly diagnosed the problem of your patient. So the same applies also in policy. We need to define also the problem. What is the problem, right? So that if we define the problem correctly, then we high chances that we are going to achieve that. We are going to solve that problem. So it means that we have to show what is the cause of that problem. It will give us relevance also to coming up with the objectives. So it means that a policy, where the document itself should have a section which is devoted to defining the problem, right? What is the problem that we want to solve? What is the situation? Then come up with a clear objectives now which addresses that problem. So now based on how the policy is good in terms of the problem situation analysis, we can assign 1 to 5. Right? Then we have to also provide the evidence now. So in that case, we can find that evidence because this is just evidence of problem causality analysis. We can find it in that policy because there should be a section. So if that section is not there where there's a problem and causality analysis, then it might mean we will score low for that. But if it's very strong, then we'll score high. And also we'll provide the justification, summary justification why we have scored a high. Then on the soundness of legal framework, or soundness of legal and regulatory framework. So a policy is good if it's linked to the Constitution, there's good Constitution backing. Without that, it will be difficult to get budget allocations. So if the policy has not gone to the Parliament, for instance, it will be difficult for Ministry of Finance to allocate some resources to it, right? Because it's not recognized by as a priority for the country. So if it's priority for the country, let it be the members of Parliament endorse that. When they endorse that, because they will give oversight. Why did you not put budget to this policy plan, right? So that is very, very important, right? To have this soundness of legal and regulatory backing. A reference to the Constitution and the backing or regulatory framework will support such documents and allocation of resources. Technical and economic soundness is another indicator. Here, what does it mean? A policy actually should have a technical and economic soundness. There should be a cost-benefit assessment, because in a country we have needs, but because we cannot implement all the needs that we want, because the resources are scarce. So for us to have this soundness, we should actually have as an assessment, economic assessment, to see not only the monetary, the economic benefits, but also the social benefits that policy could have. Because by doing this soundness and doing this technical and economic soundness, it will show us, because when we do this, I will be doing cost and benefit. So by doing cost and benefit, looking at the various alternatives, then choosing the best alternative, it will mean that this will be the best alternative to achieve our goals. So we need that. We need a feasibility study to be done to give us direction where our policy, or which is the best way to solve or to achieve our objective. Then on the policy formulation processes, here we have the first indicator is breadth and depth of consultation, participation, advocacy, and validation. Chances are, if that policy is made by a few people sitting in a room, it will, even if it gets some budgets, when you want to implement it at the grassroots level, it will not be successful, because it's not priority for the people that are in the communities that you are implementing that policy on. So we need actually to do a lot of work. We need to check whether that policy, were there some consultation for the community, were there some consultation at the district level, at the provincial level, and also even at the national level, and even linked to the sub-region and regional, and also even continental level. So there should be a lot of consultations that should be done for policy to be successful. So that is another way that you can see if a policy is good or not, and also whether our policy is going to be successful or not. It is actually all the consultations that we do. But also we need to see whether they are compliant with the regional, international statutes and declarations. So whether our policy, where is it falling? Is it falling under which statutes, which declarations? Is it linked to the SDGs? Is it linked to the CADA processes, Malabo targets? So there should be a link also to the regional, meaning that actually that policy is a link to what already exists, or what has been identified as continents' priorities. But also guarantees and provision for implementation oversight. Here, basically, it's about our policy. Is it when we are formulating it? Do we have an oversight in terms of responsibilities and the partnership arrangements? We need to clarify them, because without that, a policy might not be implemented, because we did not have oversight, which is going to be the agency, which is going to be the leading agency, who are going to be partners, who the leading agency is going to collaborate with. So if that oversight is not put in that policy, if there is no evidence that it's there, then that policy also might not see the light of the day. So it's very, very important that we do that. So basically, this is summary of what we have, what we put on the formulation. These are the formulation indicators. that we are going to do the scoring. Then if we come now to the implementation indicators, as you can see, the implementation indicators consist of 4 sub-themes. The first one, institutional framework for integrating science. So this dimension actually is looking at our policy usually, especially for the community, should be linked to agriculture, education, training, research, and extension, because these are the arms of government that are used actually to ensure that the policies are going to be implemented and even successful for that matter. So we need also to check whether these systems are there. How is it linked to agriculture, education, training, research, and extension? Because if not, then it will be difficult for us. It might mean that we will create parallel structures, which will be costly and which might also be not sustainable. So these are important. Arrangement for coordinating and innovation. Who is doing the coordination of innovation, right? Also, those arrangements should be clear. And even the partnership for collaboration, because we want this partnership to reduce the transaction costs. Because otherwise, each ministry, each sector, it will be doing activities on their own. So we need this to reduce transaction costs for implementation of the policy. Then the second sub-component, institutional framework for connecting science. So here we need the multi-sectoral programs at national level, regional, and continental level with shared responsibilities, right, with even the ministries. So how that is done, or whether these programs are at national level, regional, and continental level, and also the sharing of responsibilities is clear with the ministries, then we will score 1 to 5, also give evidence for that particular arrangement. But also even the documentation, the communication of results and expenses, how good is it? We also need to put that indicator, whether it's 1 or anything between 5, then also justify by giving evidence that is there. Institutional framework for strengthening science. Here we need the capacity of the national and regional. Do they have capacity to implement a particular activity based on the policy that we are dealing with? Then also we will do the scoring. Then it's also capacity to scale up innovation. The innovation has been done. Now we want to scale up. Do we have that capacity? We also need to do that. But all the details on these indicators are given on the policy, on the tool that we are going to share with you. I think other participants might already have seen the tool. Then also investment into this innovation. Also, we need also to scale those particular, these particular indicators. Right, I just ran through the summary because of time, but all these aspects are covered in the tool to assist us to do the scoring. Then when we are done now, we will need to compute the index. So the index, don't worry about the math part of it, but basically what it means, this is about the policy formulation. So all the scores that we have put under the formulation, we'll place them here. Then the formulation, yeah. Then all the indicators under the implementation will come here, right? So depending on I think this we can discuss on terms of the scoring. We can actually put that the formulation, we are giving a weight of 50%, meaning also we are going to give a weight of 50% for the implementation. But we might decide also that no, since this policy is just started, probably in the first year or second year, we might say that no, we give this 60% the weight, the year we give 40%. But that I think as we implement with assistance of FARA, they can advise us on how to do the scoring. Then maybe after 5 years or after 4 years, maybe we might need to lower the weight of this one, then heighten the score for this one. That can also be decided. But we can also even decide also to put other ways. In this case, this can represent some variables like nutrition, stunting, and other ways that you can also say, no, this should also be included in that index. But that we can discuss as we go in terms of implementation. We might leave this and we might say this is 50-50. That I think, like I indicated, FARA will assist us on that. right? So now, when we have done our scoring, we will find that we might be a country with a policy which is in quadrant A. So in quadrant A, as you can see, it will be high on policy formulation and also high on policy implementation. So they formulated the policy, but they're also doing very, very well in terms of the implementation. So a country in this quadrant is doing very good. But we can also have a country in B, quadrant B. What it means is that it will have very good policy implementation, but they are poor in policy formulation. So those are the countries that will, not countries, but the policy that will be in quadrant B. But we can also have a policy that will be in quadrant C. What it will mean is that we have high formulation. We've done very well in terms of formulation, but we have been done poor in terms of implementation. Then a policy that will need a lot of help will be in this quadrant D, where the formulation is very low in terms of the score, but also the policy implementation will be very low. So this we can use now to see where our policy is. Now, if we come to the implementation approach of the PPI, first we need to constitute the country policy team. I think everyone here has had a lot of conversation with Dr. Nalishebo and Alphonse, say, can we have the focal point person and focal point, can you assist us? So this is what we've been doing. We've been constituting the country policy team. Then now what is happening is now we are at stage 2, where we are having this knowledge now conveyed to us on this tool. But that's not the end. We need also to do, I think this has been pointed out with Jackson, then we'll need to have country team assessments. So now here, this stage, what we'll be doing is that we'll be, as a country, we'll actually be coming together and putting all the policies that we have that will assist us now to do to feed into the biannual review. So we will be doing the assessment using now the training that we got here. But now when we come up with we filled in the tool, we need now an independent review, right? So that we make this accountable as much as possible, and also to be strong, not to be not to be subjective. So we'll need someone to do an independent review. Then after that, we will now, sorry, this one, we might have an independent review. So it's not by an individual, but by the main stakeholders. Sorry, I had oversight for that. So we need the main stakeholders to actually come together, because this will be the team, the country policy team. But here now we have broad stakeholders to assist, main stakeholders to assist. Even it can be done independently by even another essay, but it can also be by the main stakeholders. Then at the end, we need a validation workshop by all the stakeholders. They come together now to validate the scores that we've come up with. So it doesn't mean that the one team, only the country policy team do the assessment, but it will go through the process so that is validated and say now by confidence that this is the score in terms of implementation and also in terms of formulation and also implementation. Right, and that marks the end of this presentation. So what I would like to do now is to acknowledge the technical help and also the technical help, administrative help that we got from various people and institutions, me with Dr. Jackson. So actually thank Dr. Paul Boadu, who actually was instrumental in terms of the material, and Dr. Kwaku Antwi, who actually were instrumental in coming up with this material. This is not our material, but we actually developed and adapted it to what we got through the training, FARA, which was organized by FARA. Thank you very much for that. Then also in terms of administrative, and also even very, very strong comments on the process, we actually got it from Dr. Podisi, who was very, very helpful in terms of ensuring that the quality of our product is very, very high. Also even from CADESA, Dr. Magagula, and even the other CADESA team, which actually acted behind the scenes. But also Dr. Nalishebo Mebelo, Dr. Shepard Sizira Alphonse, and Lulama also worked hard as the RENAPRE team to ensure that we have we have a good in terms of even of the program, the logistics, and all every other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Emmanuel. I hope you can hear me. I've had to reconnect using my phone. I was having difficulty with connecting via my laptop. So I just want to thank you, Emmanuel, for that very, very rich presentation on the AIS Policy Practice Index tool. And I would just like to open up the floor for questions from the participants, because they are obviously going to have to use this tool going forward. So we are opening the floor for questions from the participants.
4, 5, 6, 7.
Alphonse, if you can please look out for raised hands. I can see a hand from Moses Ngosa. I don't know if Moses, whether that is a hand up. Moses Ngosa.
Oh, sorry, Chair. I forgot to write.
Oh, I see. Okay. So is there anybody who has a question, a comment on the presentation that was shared by Dr. Emmanuel?
Dr. Nalishebu, we have a hand from Dr. Deo Gracias from Tanzania.
Okay. Dr. Deo, please ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation, giving highlight on the tool. I think it is a very useful tool. It can be applicable to our own countries. My first question is whether this tool can it be domesticated, or it cuts across all kinds of countries. Can it be domesticated in terms of, I mean, to be used in the context of within our own countries, or to just a general tool to be used across all the countries? But another thing I have noted is that are we analyzing for the dimension or for the because you have indicated there is a policy thematic area, we have theme, we have dimension, and we have indicator. Now, I think maybe also it will come maybe when we present another thing, another presentation, maybe we understand very well. What are we overall score? Are we scoring for the dimension or for the thematic area? Because at the end, we have different indicators being scored. So overall, I think at the end you have an overall score for the theme, but not in the dimensions. Another thing, under the indicators, I notice political will, which is very critical in our African countries. There should be a political will for a particular policy to be implemented. I did not see political will. Maybe under implementation, or it should be under the policy formulation. I think I did not see the political will. Again, as we have seen here from your earlier documents, I said we have policy formulation, we have policy implementation, and advocacy. Now, in your presentation, I did not see advocacy. When is it coming in? Yeah, with those that is what I had in comment, but it is a very useful tool. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deo Gracias, for that three important points. Do we have any more questions, points before we ask Emmanuel to respond? Deo Gracias, if you can lower your hand, please. Okay, we have a question from Wiseman. and then from Daphne. So we will have Wiseman and then Daphne. Please go ahead, Wiseman.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Unfortunately, throughout the presentation, I couldn't hear my device, but I got that sorted. But question is on the criteria for applying the ratings across the. So, to me, I think there is a lot of subjectivity in the way the ratings are allocated. But
Wiseman,
to give
sorry, can I just request that you type your point in the chat box, because you are breaking and we are losing out on a very important question. You've just said something very important there, which I picked up. So could you put your question or point in the chat box? Is that possible? Wiseman, is that possible?
It's not.
Yeah, just share your point in the chat box, because we can hardly hear you, but I think you have a very important point. Daphne, you can now ask your question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nalishibo, and thank you also to the presenter. Mine is just a comment, a general one for that matter, with regard to the stock taking exercise that we are going to do. Some of you may recall that during the CADEP compacts, when most of the member states, as you know, we had to undertake this as part of the implementation of the CADEP process. There was a stock taking exercise. And I realized that from the presentation that yes, perhaps the one that we will now be embarking on has added other dimensions, like the issue of integrating science. And of course, the presentation did mention about 4 areas within the biennial review process, such as the thematic area on the CADA process, which deals with inclusiveness, the issue of finance for agriculture, and so forth. So I just want to just get some more, assurance or confirmation that maybe through this exercise we will be taking stock taking to another level, which I'm happy already somebody has indicated that the issues such as advocating, for this CADEP approach needs to be highlighted. And I think it is very important, especially that the CADEP process emphasizes participation, beyond just the government, which for a long time have dominated planning and so forth, that we should get more people, such as the private sector and of course civil society coming, that perhaps we should also have this tool be able to include those areas that have traditionally being left out, just to make sure that we can have the private sector and civil society advocacy areas emphasized. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Daphne. Thank you for your intervention. So we'll just have one more for now from Brian Mulenga, and then we will ask Emmanuel to respond before we maybe open up another round of questions. So Brian, and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Dr. Nalishebo. And thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel Jackson, for that very elaborate and comprehensive presentation. Lots of details, very important ones. I must have missed maybe something because my connection was a bit kinky. I wanted to find out, you know, where you place this high, you know, human resource turnover, say in the Ministry of Agriculture, could be the technocrats themselves or even the ministers. For example, in Zambia, in the past 5 or so years, we had, I think, 3 or 4 ministers of agriculture, and you find that when a different minister comes in, even if there's policy, the policy is there, but you know, their interpretation or their zeal, you know, to implement certain programs that are in the policy differs, or they'll just take a totally different direction. And I think that has implications on policy implementation, somehow even on formulation. So I just wanted to find out how, you know, you capture that aspect of human resource and leadership turnover in the respective ministries. Thank you, and over.
Thank you, Brian. So, Dr. Emmanuel, maybe you can respond to those comments or questions, and then we can move on to open another quick round of questions.
Thank you very much, Nalishebo. Thank you very much for, I think, the good questions and also your compliments about use of this tool. I think that is a very good indication on us and also on FARA that this is a way to go. I'll start with statements from Dio Gracias from Tanzania. He said, can it be domesticated within our own country? This, I think, it might not be possible to domesticate it, but we want to use this tool in terms of Africa-wide. So what happened actually, this tool, there was a process in terms of its development. So when it started, FARA with the other stakeholders, they formulated this tool. Then with some training that was done, 2 trainings for that matter with the SROs. Then we also with the country's focus persons. Then all these processes, there were some comments which were made and which actually improved the tool. So the tool was being improved over time so that we ensure that it captures nearly all the aspects that we want it to capture. So I think it would be nice. I think at the country level, probably as an own tool, you can complement. You can ensure that it captures some of the items that you want. But I think at a continental level, we might need to have a uniform tool which will ensure that everyone which will ensure comparison. So we can keep it as a tool, as a framework for all the countries. They need to ensure that it's comparable.
Somebody has their mic on, and we can hear some. Could you turn off your microphone, please? Okay, I think they've turned it off.
All right.
Dr. Emmanuel, you can continue.
Okay, right. And then there were also the Gracious also asked a question on the on what level are we doing this analysis, right? Is it at a dimension level? Is it at the policy level? That overall score, what is it bringing us? So I think if you look at the tool, it's actually, it can only, I think this was also emphasized by Dr. Kwaku, that it can only look at a policy, but that policy, not the whole policy, but a dimension of a policy. So I think we can only do the analysis for a dimension, right? Like we are talking about market and trade. That policy falls under, that dimension falls under number 2. I think it's number, it should be number 2 for a policy on food. Is it food safety? I can't remember. But we are analyzing for a dimension of a policy, right? So if a policy has got 5, 2, 3, 4 dimensions, then it means that we have to do analysis for each, and the overall score is the overall score for that particular dimension, right? Then I think Jackson here and also Dr. Kwaku, you can assist on political will. There is no indicator. What I feel is that this political will is captured on was when we want this policy to be, we want the policy to be approved or to be endorsed by through our constitution, through our legislators. So I think that should be an indication of political will if the members of parliament approve that policy. Then where is the advocacy? Because as we see, it's clear on policy formulation, it's clear on implementation. So where is policy advocacy? Also here, I will ask for assistance from Jackson and also Kwaku, but I can have a go. But when we are implementing this policy, we are going to have scores, whether we have done good or bad. So using that policy now, we can also do some advocacy to say we have not done well here. So can we advocate for better implementation of policy, for better involvement of the citizens, of the policymakers, of the politicians, of the members of the parliament? So in that case, I think that then it acts as an advocacy tool. When coming to wise men, okay, that's he probably will get the full comments from him when he types. Then from Daphne, you've indicated that you have already done some stock taking during the CADAP compact. Then also you have encouraged full participation of stakeholders, which is very good, because also I think we are in agreement, especially with these two, that for us to be able to have good policy formulation and implementation, there's need for participation of all the stakeholders. So all the stakeholders who are supposed to be involved in a particular policy or a project or a plan management for us to implement a particular dimension of policy, there's need for involvement of everyone who is key. So I think that is a good point that you have raised. So I think, Jackson, can you come in some of the points or for your comments? And also,
okay, let me start, then Kwaku can come in also, so that he can feed in wherever I'm not able to. And it's good to point at this point that Wiseman also has posted this question in the chat. And the point that he's making is that there is subjectivity in the tool, and it looks like issues of legislative dimension. I would personally suggest that all dimensions could be made granular sub-items which are rated and blah, 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 blah. So I think the point that you're making, Wiseman, is the issue of subjectivity. And may I point at this point that this tool is a pragmatic tool that was developed to address the issue of how do we assess how we are doing as far as the policies that we are pursuing, especially on science, technology, and innovations are concerned. So it's a way of estimating that performance. So it's a performance index. So in terms of coming up with this performance, there is that aspect of the leak that was identified as one of the key items, that it creates a bit of competition among the countries, so that through this now, depending on your score, then it can be used as a tool for advocacy. But maybe just to mention something about this issue of subjectivity, for every score that is put in that tool, there is need for a support information or kind of a means of verification, where you say that we are scoring this because of A, B, C, D. And those A, B, C, D are documents. And these documents could also be some trade literature that is available that backs up the position that you are scoring a particular a particular criteria on. Like, for example, if there is no implementation plan, so the score could, because it's between 0 and 5, so it could come tending towards 0, and the basis then would be that there is lack of a clear implementation plan. So most of these things are just put in place to enhance the issue of subjectivity. But again, the people that are going to do the score are fast trained, and that training, the one you're going through now, is meant to remove a bit of that subjectivity, because in any case, the policy making and implementation process is about the manpower that are engaged in there. So we cannot take off, we cannot come up with a ruler, for example, measuring that. We have to use the judgment of the people that are involved in this process. So the way of bringing in this issue of support documents and the way of making the training before the assessment itself is one way of removing some of those biases that comes with subjectivity and put in some objectivity in the whole process of estimation. I think that is what I wanted to say on the issue that Weissman is raising in. And on the issue of advocacy again, remember in this tool, if you remember, as Emmanuel was taking us through, there are some indicators. For example, in investment in agricultural innovation systems, and the first item there is public sector expenditure commitment, and you're checking for continuity and certainty in that case. And there is also civil society and donor commitment in resourcing to science and innovation. So civil society in this case, you could say now, how much advocacy activities are they undertaking, and how much are they also investing as far as actioning for this investment is concerned. And of course, the last one in that section is the private sector participation and investment in science and innovation. So if you consider the entire spectrum of the tool, remember all of those facets that you are bringing out at this point are somehow addressed. And that is the point where you could bring out whether all these constituent partners to all these policy processes are involving themselves and how much they are staking as far as the process is concerned. Thank you.
Emmanuel, are you done with responding?
That is Jackson. Perhaps Kwaku was supposed
I don't
to come
know.
in.
Yes, yes, just briefly. I think Emmanuel and Jackson have done justice to those questions that were raised. I only want to add a few things to it, looking at the time that we have. I think on the issue of subjectivity, I just want to say that this tool, the development of this tool also has its basis from continental and then regional documents that we seek to implement, or African countries seek to implement. So like the CADEP, and then the national and then regional policy documents that we have, and then the science agenda documents that we also have. And so it captures all the dimensions that have been developed, have basis or have their roots in these documents. Okay, and so that is how the tool was developed with that kind of lens. Now on this course, as Jackson and Emmanuel have said, we agree that it is likely that you will have high levels of subjectivity, and that is why we don't encourage only few people coming up with the scores and then accepting the scores as it is. If you remember from the presentation, it has to go through 2 levels of validation, okay, before we accept, or before it is accepted that this is the score that we want to present. So we believe that by the time it goes through these 2 levels, or even 3, because at the end of the day, the team leaders themselves will validate it before they present it to the country, team, and then a broader stakeholder validation. Definitely, these are things that we do to ensure that the subjectivity level is reduced to the barest minimum. I think for the advocacy too, they have done a good job on that. I wouldn't want to belabor the point, except to say that you cannot advocate for something when it is not grounded with data, or when you don't have information. Okay, if you go and you seek support for, say, policy implementation in a particular country or policy formulation in a particular country, you want to see an improvement in that. On what basis are you saying that? What data do you have to back your claim that there's weak policy formulation processes or there's weak policy implementation processes? Until you have data, you cannot speak to the issues. So these two helps us to get the data that is needed to advocate for improvement in policy formulation and implementation at the highest level that we can imagine. So that is where the advocacy aspect of it comes in. It helps us to come up with the data we can rely on to advocate for some of these changes that we are looking for. Thank you very much. Over to you, Emmanuel.
Emmanuel, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Nalshebo. I think we forgot there's a quick one from Brian. He indicated that, especially for the experience in Zambia, they're having a human resource turnover. So how can it be captured? I think it can be captured on the framework. I think if you go to on the implementation, there's a certain way. Can I say it? Maybe even 2.2 institutional framework for considering science. So there, I think you can find somewhere to capture it, that we have this low score because of 1, 2, 3. So I think you can look for any indicator, appropriate indicator to address that. So it's possible to capture that. Yeah, over to you, Nashebo.
Yes, Emmanuel, have you seen the question from Diogratias? At what time of policy implementation the assessment should be appropriately made? Have you responded to this one? At what time of policy implementation should the assessment be appropriately made? Does that make sense?
I think it's a very appropriate question. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, this tool we can. Okay. Yeah, this tool can already start. So you can start doing the assessment even when on the formulation. So on the formulation, you've done the formulation. It's possible that you, as a country, can want to see, did we do it well? So you look at whatever the processes that has happened, stakeholder consultations. So using those indicators, you can check. Then 1 year, both is being done on an annual basis. So the next year, you might find that there are only probably few items that you have achieved. So in that case, that's why we might need to put a weighting that maybe during the first year of analysis, we'll put more weights on the implementation, on the formulation, less weight on the implementation because nothing much has happened. Second year, probably we will be generous enough for the implementation, add some more weights. Then probably third year, we have equal weights. Fourth year, probably more weights on implementation. So I think it will be changing as we go because we want to accommodate the strengths or the strengths that we have probably for implementation and also for formulation. So I think we can already apply it as we go because it's a learning tool that we are doing. It's a living tool that we are using every year, so that we can check progress also. Because we want to use this tool to ensure that we improve every year. So I think if we can start right from the beginning, implementation, first year, second year, it will assist us to see how we are improving over time. Jackson and Paku, we can add.
Jackson and Kwaku, do you have anything to add?
No, Nalishebo, I think Emmanuel has addressed the issue. So because of I wouldn't want to add more.
All right. So thank you. Dr. Emmanuel, thank you, Jackson, also for coming in, and Dr. Kwaku for also supporting Emmanuel in his presentation. Let me also thank those who have asked questions and made comments. We still have another 3 more days to go, and I know there will be more questions, but I'm sure that your questions will be answered as we go along with the training over the next 3 days. So there is one activity that was supposed to be done after Emmanuel's presentation, but in the interest of time, I'm thinking, Emmanuel, maybe that is something we can do first thing tomorrow, or is it something that can be done by the participants offline?
Yeah, they can be done offline. So basically, this exercise is just about coming up with and using the PPI tool. So we'll send all the instructions on a Google Classroom and also on Google Drive. So each team can work remotely, but filling in the tool. So you'll get some email very soon to do this exercise.
Okay, and it's not a very long exercise. So Emmanuel, do they need to come with that exercise tomorrow when they come to the training? Should it have been done, or is it something that they can do over time?
Yeah, that would be good if it can be done. If you can, because I think when they filled in the form, if we can have 2 or 3 countries which has managed to do that, then we will discuss first thing in the morning on how they did it, what are the problems, then they can share their experience.
Okay, so just to recap what you have said, an email will be sent to all the participants with a link to a specific document or documents that the country teams can fill in at the same time. So it's Google Docs, and I think the other one is called Google Classroom. So those documents will be sent to you via a link from Alphonse Akuyu. So please look out for an email from Alphonse. If you can fill in those documents sometime later today or before we meet tomorrow at, I believe, 10 a.m. Central African time, that will be good. So please look out for those documents. So on that note, I just want to thank all of you for your participation, your commitment to this work, your questions, your comments. Those are testimony to the fact that this tool is important for our countries in the framework of CADIP and the CADIP XP4 program. Let me also thank Dr. Podisi from the CADESA Secretariat for his remarks this morning. To Kwaku, thank you very much. From Farah, your input to this first day has really been enriching. To all our colleagues from the RINAPRI Secretariat, participants from the different countries in the Southern African region, colleagues from the network, Lulama, thank you very much for your participation. We look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central African time. And please encourage members of your team who were not able to join in today, that it's not too late to join this training tomorrow. So thank you once again, and have a wonderful day until we meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central African time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Alphonse, thank you.